and the only leader of a national party right now in this election in Canada who is doing podcasts. The only one.
Very special guest with me, Mr. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada.
Why the independence is more popular in Quebec now? Because of Trudeau, because of mass immigration. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm saying to Canadians, we are the only real other option. If mass immigration is important for you, if you want to have a smaller government that will respect provincial autonomy and your freedom, I'm telling you, viewers, go on our website, read our platform. If you like it, I hope you'll support us. If not, like I said during that podcast, I won't change. The goal of the Conservative and the Liberals is to be in power. And after that, they're going to do everything to stay in power. It's not about policies.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan McNeil, and this is the Builder by Day podcast. Today, I am very pleased to have a very special guest with me, Mr. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada. Maxime, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate that you are a very busy man probably these days, and I appreciate you making the time.
Well, thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure for me to be here. As you know, during that electoral campaign, I'm traveling a lot across the country. But we decided, my team, to do a lot of podcasts. Mm-hmm. For me, that is a new way to communicate with Canadians. Mm-hmm. And when you said, that would be fun, you're in Halifax, if you can take an hour, sure. I said, why not? It's part of our strategy, being out there, speaking with people in real life, but also doing podcasts. So for it, I think that people like long format, and so that's why I'm here, and I'm very pleased.
That's good. No, I appreciate that very much. Could you, perhaps just as a Cole's Notes, kind of a short version, could you just maybe, for anyone that's watching that's not familiar with the People's Party, could you just give us a bit of somewhat of a short history or background?
Yes, actually. I was like you. I was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I did work in the financial sector in Montreal for 19 years, VP of a bank and insurance corporation. And in 2006, I had a meeting with Stephen Harper, and Mr. Harper was looking for a candidate in Quebec. And I said to myself, okay, I said to myself, okay, I want to try that. I want to be part, because I believe in a smaller government. I believe in more freedom and deregulation. So I said, maybe you'll be able to do something. So I was elected as a Conservative in 2006. I was industry minister, and we did a big deregulation in the telecom sector. Prices for a cell phone went down, so that was very successful. And I had different position with Harper. So I was with him for 13 years with the Conservative. And in 2017, I did the leadership contest of the Conservative Party of Canada, and I didn't run for the leadership. So I didn't win with 49% of the vote. That was a tough time, because I thought that I'll be able to win that. But anyway, I tried to work with Andrew Scheer. He was elected in 2017, the leader of the Conservative. And after 15 months, I had a meeting with Andrew Scheer. And I wanted him to take some of our ideas, because, I had 49%, and my ideas for individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect and fairness, that was the 4 principles of my campaign for the leadership, with strong policies in line with these principles. So I said, we will have an election in 2019. We were in 2018. Do you have any ideas? How many of our ideas that you will put in your electoral platform? And he was very honest, and he told me, Maxime, I won't take any of your ideas for the next electoral platform for the Conservative Party of Canada. I said, why? They were popular. He said, yes, Maxime, your ideas were popular with the membership of the Conservative Party of Canada. But I'm running, me and Andrew Scheer, I'm running to be the Prime Minister, and your ideas are not popular with the general population. So I won't take any of your ideas. And that's why I resigned, and I said, this party is morally and intellectually corrupt. They don't want to promote real conservative ideas when they are not that popular. So we created the People's Party in 2018. with the same ideas, the same policies that I was running on during the leadership contest. And we created the party in 2018. We had our first election in 2019. We had 1.6% of the vote. Everybody were saying at that time, oh, that's the end of Bernier and the People's Party. But we did work hard, and we almost tripled our score from 2019 to 2021 with 5% of the vote. And our goal for this election is, if we can double our score from 5 to 10, that would be great. And we may have our first candidate elected. So, and when we created, just to answer your question, when we created the People's Party, that was based on these 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And we are speaking about always the same policies at every election. We don't do any polling or focus group. We have a strong vision for this country, and our goal is to explain that vision, to speak about that vision. And the more we speak about that, the more support we have. So contrary to the conservatives and the liberals, we don't do any polling because we believe that the population has been manipulated by the leftist media. So we are up there. We have strong free markets ideas, and we are promoting that. So at every election, it's always the same platform. And now people understand that if they want to have a real change, we are that option.
Okay. What are you? I'm relatively familiar with the PPC platform. I've read through it. I had Michelle Lindsay on the podcast a few months ago. Yeah. And we chatted a bit about it then as well. And I said to Michelle, which I'm saying to you now, is that when I read through the platform, first of all, I originally met Michelle the summer before this past summer, but at the time I had mentioned that the platform is it's well written, it's articulated very well, it's very easy to understand and kind of follow along. And as you read through that, I've said to many people, I friends of mine that would certainly be considered conservative folks on the conservative end of the scale. And I've sent it to folks before and had them read through it and say, everything in there looks great to me, right? And how does that, when you're out chatting, so when we're election coming up here in less than a month and you're hard at work and you're campaigning, what are you hearing from Canadians and the people you speak with what are the most important issues that you're hearing from people?
When you said the platform is easy to read, and yes, and we are proud of that. So that's why I'm saying also that our goal as a political party is to appeal to your intelligence, not to your emotions. Usually in politics, politicians would try to appeal to your emotions, using fear, like during COVID-19, to try to change your behavior. For us, Canadians need to make an effort to go and read our platform. And my experience is when somebody is reading the platform, usually we will be able to have the support of that person. And so the only argument that we have when they like the platform is against us, is, Maxime, I like everything on your platform, you're great, but you cannot win, but you cannot be in government, but I need to get rid of Trudeau. When people end, but you will split the vote. So they don't have any arguments against our platform. And the conservative actually don't want to have a discussion about our platform. They are throwing names at me. They're saying, Bernier is splitting the vote. But we don't split the vote. Right now, during this campaign, it is the conservatives who are splitting the liberal votes. They're going to the left to be sure to have support in big cities like Montreal and Toronto. So when they're saying that, you don't have nobody elected, it's the beginning. What we are doing politics for the long term. If we double our score from 5 to 10, we may have our first candidate elected. And it's more difficult in a parliamentary system because there's no proportionality in our electoral system to have a new young political party to have people elected. But I'm looking at in UK, you have Nigel Farage with the Reform Party. He created that party a year before the general election in UK, and he was able to have 15% of the vote. But with 15% of the vote, he was able to elect only six candidates. But now, a year and a half after the general election, in the polls over there in UK, he is at 26%. If there's an election, he may be the leader of the opposition or he may be prime minister. So for us, if we can double that to 10 at this election, that will be the beginning of a change. And like I said, if you like our platform, why you will vote for the Conservative if the Conservative Party of Canada is not fighting for what you believe, but you're ready to vote for them to be sure that the Liberals won't be in power, the party that does not represent your values, and you won't vote for the party that is representing your values and fighting for your values because we may not be in government at this election. When you are acting like that, you are dishonest with yourself. You don't vote in line with your values, and we won't build a strong society if people are not supporting their values. So for me, this election is a great one, and I'm pretty sure that with our candidates, so we have about 325 candidates. Okay. Up to now, there's 343 ridings. So almost every Canadian will be able to vote for the People's Party. And that's my goal. At this election, doubling our score, having our first candidate elected, and after that, it will be a question of time.
So when you look at the folks who gravitate toward the People's Party and are drawn to the People's Party, when you're chatting with these folks, what are their, what would you say are their main concerns, or what is driving them toward the People's Party versus the concern? Because would it be safe to assume that the folks who are, I don't want to make this assumption, but would it be safe to assume that your targeting is not the right word? I don't like using targeting, but because I can't come up with a better word than targeting, are you focusing on the more rightward side of conservative folks? Like, do you understand what I mean?
That's a good question. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, we have a lot of support from former conservative voters. Okay. But for example, I'll tell you an anecdote. I was in BC, and we had two young candidates. And this summer, I was able to be with them and meet them for the first time. And both of them, two young guys, and they are for the People's Party. They are candidates right now on the Vancouver Island. Mm-hmm. And they said, Maxime, we were for the Green Party. We did work with Elizabeth May to be sure that Elizabeth May will be elected. And now we are proud to be with you. And I said, whoa, wait, why are you with me? Do you know our position on climate change? Do you know that we won't sign the Paris Accord? He said, Maxime, we will be with you, and we are with you and stay with you because of that. We understand now that you must create wealth before redistributing it. And my goal is everybody, like the environment, I want everybody to be able to have, for example, solar panels for their house. But if they don't have the money to pay for it, it won't happen. Right. So your platform is, creating wealth and with a smarter government and more freedom. And I'm okay because people will be able to invest to protect the environment. And your position on climate change, we know that there's no emergency there, and you won't spend money to achieve a goal that won't save the planet. And so we understand that. That's why we are with you. So what I'm telling you is we have people coming from the Green, the NDP, but we don't do any survey. What is the biggest majority of our supporters? Maybe former conservative, because if you look at the data, we had 5% of the vote in average all across the country at the last election. But only in Alberta, in the province of Alberta, we had 10%.
Okay.
So we have maybe a little bit more supporters coming from the Conservative, but also we have supporters coming from all these different political parties. And also when I'm traveling and meeting people who are telling me, Maxime, I never voted at the federal level. I'm voting at the provincial level, but at the federal level, I don't like the politics over there, but I will vote for the first time. So we have people who are fed up with what's happening at the federal level, and they're saying, they're all the same. Bernie is different, and I may try him. So if we can have these non-voters, that will help us a lot, because there's 40% of the population who didn't vote at the last election. So imagine if we have only half of that, we'll be at 20%.
Yeah, that would be huge, of course.
Yeah.
What do you, if you had to, this may take a bit of time to run through, but, I've found in the last few weeks even, certainly since the time the election was officially announced, but even before that, I've seen what looks like the Conservative Party moving more right, because to me, I've watched the Liberal Party come back toward the center in an effort because they've alienated so many people. I mean, they had to do that. But so when I look at that, I sort of see as if everything has kind of started to shift back toward the center a little bit, which seemed to allow Poilievre and the Conservatives to go a little more rightward on some topics. But where we are today, where would be the significant differences between, say, Conservative policy or principles versus the People's Party?
So you're right about the fact that the Liberals are going more to the center. And that's why, for Poilievre right now, it's a little bit more difficult during this electoral campaign, because he was well known to be against Trudeau and against, Trudeau's policies. But now Carney said he won't impose a carbon tax. Poilievre wanted an election on a carbon tax. It won't happen. So, and Carney is going a little bit economically, a little bit more to the center. But from our difference between us and Poilievre, for me, Poilievre is at the left. For example, climate change. Poilievre and Carney have the same policy on that. They will sign the Paris Accord. They won't impose a carbon tax, but they will impose more regulations on businesses, and they will do everything to achieve the targets that we have in the Paris Accord. And they're okay with the net zero in 2050. Net zero, it's no CO2, green gas in 2050. But for both of them, CO2 is a pollutant. For us, CO2 is a gas essential for life. That's the reality. CO2 is food for plants, and there's no problem with CO2. So on the climate change, they're the same. On the war in Ukraine, both of them were pro-war. And now it's time for peace. President Trump tried to have a peace deal with Ukraine and Russia. We said since the beginning that we must not be part of that war. And Trudeau sent $20 billion there. Poilievre wanted him to send more. So the war in Ukraine, climate change, and mass immigration. Mass immigration, Poilievre, at least he put a number on the immigrants. He said 250,000 a year. But 250,000 a year new foreigners in Canada, that's the beginning, because you have to add the non-permanent residents, the international students, the temporary foreign workers, the refugees. So over 3 years, it will be about 1.5 million foreigners in our country. And the Liberals are for the status quo. So both of them, Liberals and Conservatives, are for mass immigration. When you have 70% of the population who's saying, no, enough is enough. We are the only party that is saying we'll have a moratorium, a pause on immigration, because we have all these problems to solve because of mass immigration. So on mass immigration, that is for me the most important challenge that we have. Look what is happening in Europe, in France with Marine Le Pen, in UK with Nigel Farage. They are all fighting to end that mass immigration in their country. We see the impact of mass immigration. They are losing their social fabric in UK, in Germany, in France. And here in Canada, that's the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we want to stop that right now. But Poilievre and Carney are the same about it. I can go on taxes and big deficit. Both of them will, cut some taxes to us, but both of them will do that by borrowing money. And the deficit, it's not important for them. If you're a conservative, usually you want to be fiscally responsible, but they are not, Poilievre and Carney. So for us, you can balance the budget in 1 year, and after that, with the surplus, you lower taxes. But for them, they're doing that right now. And Poilievre and Carney are okay with a deficit for the next 3 years. What that means when you have a deficit, it's the taxes, the deficit of today is the taxes of tomorrow, or the inflation of tomorrow. So we will pay for that tax reduction by more taxes tomorrow, or with more inflation tomorrow. So it's not responsible. So what I'm telling you is we are very different, and Poilievre is like the Liberals on the most important issues. So that's why I'm saying to Canadians, we are the only real other option. If mass immigration is important for you, if you want to have a smaller government that will respect provincial autonomy and your freedom, we are there. But that's why right now, Poilievre is not doing well in that campaign, because people look at it and it's okay. You're the same on all these policies. You're a liberal light. I would prefer the real liberal, and I would go for Carney. The population is telling that to Poilievre right now.
Do you think the polls are accurate?
Yes and no. Yeah. No, for us, we're supposed to be at 2%, for example. Mm-hmm. But they don't put our name in the major polls. They put others. And I can tell you, I can feel that momentum when I'm traveling. People out there, we're very active on social media. We have our candidates that are campaigning. So I think that right now we are more than 2%, us personally. And that's why my goal to the 10% is doable. We still have 4 weeks of campaigning. But if you look at, I know that it is a tight race between Poilievre and Trudeau. But
Carney.
Carney. Yeah. Poilievre and Carney.
Mm-hmm.
And also, usually people will decide the last week of the election.
Sure.
So the polls right now can show Carney in advance, and some people won't answer. They don't want to answer. Usually the last week after the debates, you have 2 national debates in English and in French. Usually after that, people are more ready and they will express their real point of view. But now, I believe that we are not at 2%, and maybe Carney is not so high in the polls actually right now.
Mm-hmm. This situation that we have with, I want to shift gears a little bit now. I want to talk, you mentioned Trump and when we were talking through there, but it would appear that the Liberal Party, and I'm not making this up, I've heard others that journalists and so on have talked about this, but it would appear that the Liberal Party have made, everything is about Trump and the U.S. and tariffs and the threat to our sovereignty. And, they've really, really leaned into that, right?
Yeah. And the media is buying that.
Well, yes, that's what I mean. And when I say the Liberals, I also mean the media that they control, right? That's ultimately probably the biggest problem. But what's your opinion on that? When it comes to Trump and the U.S., what do you think about all that?
And they have a new slogan now, Canada is not for sale.
Mm-hmm.
But Trump didn't say that he wants to buy Canada. Right. No. Trump won't invade our country military. No. Trump wants to have the relocalization of the manufacturing sector in the U.S. I understand that. So that's why he likes tariffs, but not only for Canada, for every other country. So the 51st state, I took a time to read Trump's book, The Heart of a Deal, and that's negotiation.
Right.
And he did throw names at us, and he's doing that in the negotiation. 51st state, and Trudeau is the governor. But now you can see the change. He did what he did with that, but for me, it was a joke. It was a bad joke for us.
Right.
We won't be the 51st state. And now, but Poilievre and Carney and Trudeau in the beginning used that to say to Canadians, Trump is dangerous. We are sovereign. We're going to keep our sovereignty. No, but they use that to try to promote themselves, and they find a new enemy, and the new enemy is Trump. And the media love that story. They use it, and now, I'll give you an example. I'm running in Beauce in Quebec, and my mom, she's 88 years old. She's listening Radio Canada in French, and she said, Maxime, don't speak about Trump. Everybody loves Trump here in Beauce. Don't speak and don't say anything against him or for him. I said, Ma'am, I said, my campaign is not for being for Trump or against Trump. It's for Canadians.
Right.
And, what he's doing, that isn't having an impact on us, but we can solve that with good policies. But people have been brainwashed by the media about that. And that's great for the Liberals. And Poilievre also is playing that game with, Canadian flags and try to use that to say, we are the only one that will save the country against Trump. That was not serious, and they used that just for their electoral gains.
Do you think, speaking of the media, so when specifically, Poilievre has indicated several times that he intends to defund the CBC at some level, whereas the Liberals are kind of the opposite. They've suggested they want to double down and increase the funding and put it into legislation so that it would be law to be funded moving forward. Do you have an opinion one way or other when it comes to?
Oh yeah, I said that way before Poilievre. I said we must defund the media and the CBC. But Poilievre is speaking only about the CBC. He's not speaking about Radio Canada in French. Okay. He will keep the funding of Radio Canada in French. Why? Because he's afraid of the reaction in Quebec from the Francophone over there. So for him, it's all about buying votes. CBC is not popular in English Canada. He will cut it. Radio Canada is a little bit more popular in Quebec. He won't touch it. For me, we must have media that would be independent, not dependent on money coming from the federal government.
Sure.
So we're going to cut both of them, but also that's $1.2 billion. And there's another $800 million that is going to La Presse in Montreal or the Globe and Mail and all these media, traditional media. We will cut that also. So we will cut all the funding that is going to the media. Contrary to Poilievre, we'll cut only the CBC in English, about $1 billion. So because the logic is you want the media independent. And if they're not able to have money from their viewers, they will go bankrupt. And in a capitalist system, that's good. But if they want to be able to raise money with Canadians, maybe they will change their editorial line and being more, truthful. Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's our position. But also about the mainstream media, they're dying. It's a question of time. Now, the federal government is able to keep them alive, but they will die. So that's why social media, independent media, alternative media, that's the most important. And actually, I had a discussion with Jordan Peterson in 2021. And I said to Jordan, I said, the mainstream media is canceling me. What can I do? I want to have more visibility. And he said, Maxime, that was in 2021. Forget it. The mainstream media are not the future. If they don't cover you, it's okay. Be on social media, be active, do podcasts, And Trump did the same.
Right.
Trump did a lot of podcasts in the US. Harris didn't do any podcasts. And the only leader of a national party right now in this election in Canada who is doing podcasts, the only one, American Canadians, because the American podcaster, they have Canadian viewers. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to have a 1 hour discussion. And I like it, and I'm doing that, and that's the future. I can tell you maybe in the election in 2029, all the politicians will have to do the podcast tour, like I'm doing right now. But that's the future. So for me, I'm a little bit upset that I'm not in the news in this election. It's like we don't exist. Mm-hmm. But, our time will come, and that's why I'm with you and with a lot of podcasters across the country.
Why do you think that you don't exist why do you think you get no recognition or acknowledgement of any kind in the mainstream media?
They don't like our ideas. They're leftists. Yeah. They don't, and they know if they speak about our ideas, that's common sense ideas. They know that we may grow faster as a political party. They try to discredit us between 2019 and 2021. We had 1.6% of the vote like I said, in 2019. After the election, they tried to discredit us. I was crazy, and they were speaking about us, but badly. Mm-hmm. So the election in 2021 happened. We had 5%. So they said, okay, if we speak bad about Maxime Bernier, that may help him. So let's be silent. And so that's why they are canceling us. They don't like our ideas, but it's we won't change. I cannot do anything about that, but I don't see any other reason.
No, nor do I. I was just curious if you had if it was anything other than what appears to be the obvious. Mm-hmm. Will you be in the debates?
Yeah, that's the other question. I was supposed to be in the debate. In 2021, they said, for Bernier, you need to have 4% of the vote at the previous election. They said that in 2021. At the election in 2019, the previous election, I had 1.6. So I was not able to participate. Okay. And so last summer, in August of 2024, we received a call from the Leaders Debate Commission and the director in charge of that Leaders Debate Commission. And he said, we want to have an interview with Bernier because, we may have an election soon. And we know that the format that we used in 2021 didn't go well. So we want to have the inputs of every leader. And my team said, Maxime was not there in 2021. He said, yes, but he may give an idea what would be the best format because he will be there at the next election. You had 5% of the vote and we were asking for 4%. So that's why we want to speak with Bernier because he will be there. Mm-hmm. But what they did, couple of weeks before the election, they came with a new press release and new criteria to discredit us. So because they don't want us, and they have some pressure also coming from the conservatives, at the board, the board of that Leaders Debate Commissions, there's 2 former conservative MPs. So I'm pretty sure that they're putting pressure on the civil servant working for the commission to be sure that they will exclude us. So now that criteria is not good anymore, and now we have to follow 2 criteria. The first one is to have at least 310 candidates on 343. Like I told you, we have about 325 candidates. That's done. The second one, they're going to play with that to exclude us. We need to be at 4% in the polls 28 days before the elections on average. That means they can take a poll that is giving us 1%, and if we have a poll that is giving us 4.1, our average will go down and we won't be there. Actually, they did that in 2021 to exclude us. They said, oh, that's a new criteria. And at that time, we were at 8% in the polls, 28 days before the election, but they took a couple of polls that were giving us 1.2, 1%, and our average went down to below 2%, 4%, sorry. So they will do the same thing. So answering your questions, we have a little chance to be able to participate. But I know that they cheat, they change the criteria, and now they will take some polls that are giving us 2, 1, or 1.9%. So I don't think, and I don't trust them. I don't trust that. I don't trust that commission anymore.
Well, I hope you get the opportunity to be in the debate. I mean, has it been determined that you're not going to be?
It will be tomorrow.
Okay.
It will be Tuesday. Tomorrow, they will come. They're going to say, "Oh, we did a lot of pollings, and Bernier is below 4%, so we won't participate."
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're going to say that.
Okay, that's unfortunate. I want to go back to the. I want to chat with you a little more on the thing that comes up often, which is the vote splitting thing. You know, the conservative folks say it, and I want to frame this in the form of. I'd like to frame it in the form of an analogy, but it's a kind of a crude analogy because that's just my own shortcomings of coming up with something that a picture I can paint for you.
Okay.
But I'm coming at it from a genuine place of somebody who I would put myself in the category of conservative people.
Yeah.
A conservative person who is looking at the People's Party and looking at the Conservatives and could go either way, if you think of it that way. But I look at it as an analogy, and I get that this isn't bang on for a number of reasons. It's not the right analogy, but just bear with me. Let me walk it through.
Yeah.
Imagine, I look at it as though we as the voters, we as the Conservative or People's Party voters. So in other words, I'm excluding
the left.
Okay. We, the voters, have these two parents.
Yeah.
We have
Mom and dad.
Mom and dad. Okay. Mom, the Conservative, dad, the People's Party. Okay. But standing at the door is somebody from social services or whomever it might be.
Okay.
And we don't want to go with them.
Okay.
Our first priority is I don't want to leave this house that I'm in. I either want mom to be in charge or dad to be in charge. But part of me thinks I'd like them to work together.
Okay.
Because I think us kids are better off if we have some of dad's influence.
There's a couple.
Right. I think we're better off that way. But again, the number one thing is that I don't want to leave. I don't want to go with this other group because that's terrible for us. I'm looking at the People's Party and yourself, and I'm thinking, okay, I understand what you're saying. I understand that the Conservatives are not conservative enough in some cases. And I agree with you on things like foreign aid and foreign spending and Ukraine and the things you mentioned. But also part of me is kind of like, now's not the time, right? I don't want you guys to fight. I don't want you guys to fight about it. What I want is for you to acknowledge, look, I acknowledge that we share these things in common. We do have these things that we share in common. But this is where mom is not going far enough with it, and we'd like you to go further. But what we don't want to be is completely split up to whereby this other entity is in control. Because I see it as what I'd like to see is, I mean, we can be frank here. Obviously, you've mentioned it would be great to get to say 10%.
Yeah.
But clearly, the People's Party are not going to be in power. I mean, you're not going to be at this election, right? So knowing that, what I'd like to see as a conservative person, I want to see the Conservatives in power, but I also want to see some People's Party voices holding them to account. So I want to see the People's Party have some seats. I want to see something anchoring further on the right, because there's going to be no shortage of people pulling from the left. And so I always have a hard time getting my head around that, where it's like similar to how, the NDP theoretically are supposed to be further left than the Liberals. Of course, Trudeau took the Liberal Party so far left that, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP were like, well, what do we have left? You're as left as anyone's ever been. Right? Yeah. But, I just have a hard time getting my head around that. I sort of want, it's kind of like, I just want to put my arms around it. Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just come together until we get over this hurdle?
I'll use your analogy, and I'm the mom, the PPC mom, and Polyev is the PPC, the conservative dad. Mm-hmm. So, and you're saying it would be great if the mom and dad can work well together to be sure that we will protect the house and everything will be okay. But mom told dad, Polyev conservative, you cheated on me. You cheated on me. I cannot have confidence in you. You did that for a couple of years, and sorry about that, but you must go out that home. You're not welcome anymore. That's what the conservative did. They cheated on their conservative values. They cheated on that just to be in government. I was with Harper in government in 2015. I said, we will be a real conservative government. We have a majority after two minority governments. And Harper wasn't. What Harper did, what is the legacy of Stephen Harper with a majority? Zero. He abolished the wheat board in Western Canada. Zero. Trudeau destroyed all the legacy, Stephen Harper legacy, in 1 year. Harper wanted to be a good manager of a big fat government. Harper gave more money to Quebec in the equalization payments. He changed the equalization formula to be more generous. Harper was doing politics by survey and polling and focus group. I know I was part of that government. No legacy. Who's giving advice to Poilievre? Harper. And now Poilievre is afraid. Poilievre won't do the bold reform that we need. And he cheated on our principles. So we cannot trust him. And that's why I'm not with them anymore. I'm not with them anymore. They think that they try to please everybody, but the most important, they are pandering to ethnic communities. And Poilievre is like Trudeau, with a new costume every weekend, try to pander to them. What is the message? Multiculturalism that is destroying our country. This is the message. He did a press conference with the number 2 of his party, and the press conference was in English and Punjabi. No, sorry about that. There's 2 official languages here, French and English. I'm tired of that. We need to abolish that Multiculturalism Act. We need to promote Canadian values. But Poilievre is splitting. So Poilievre, on mass immigration, is the same like Trudeau. So why do you want to get rid of the Liberals right now when you'll have the same, a little bit better on the economy? But now Carney is going to the right on the economy. So... And just wait when they're going to come before the end of this campaign, when they will balance the budget. I'm pretty sure both of them will say 3 years. There's no difference. But if Poilievre is elected, and we have a couple of candidates elected, we will support Poilievre when he'll be a real conservative. And you can count on me, we will shame him when he won't be a conservative. So they cheated. We are not in the same house right now. He's outside. And yes, maybe we'll have a liberal government. But for me, you need our voice. And if we need another liberal government, to be sure that this country will go deeper into the ground, if people are ready for another government that will be liberal and they will destroy everything, and I'm okay with that. In 2029, people will look, because, under Poilievre and Trudeau, this country may not exist in 10 years. Not because of Trump, because of Poilievre and Trudeau. Out west, I did a podcast last week with a young lady podcast in Alberta, separatist. Separatist.
Right, I've seen
and
some
she was telling, do I have to go to the US or be independent? And I told them, do you know that? I said, why are you separatists? Because they're fed up with Ottawa. Because Poilievre is taking their vote for granted. Because they don't speak about the equalization formula. I said we will cut the equalization formula by half. It's $26 billion that the federal government is giving to poor provinces, Quebec and New Brunswick and other provinces. We will cut that by half, $13 billion maximum. We will change the formula. So I told her, if you want to be serious, you need to vote for the People's Party, because we're the only one who will have a smaller government and do a radical decentralization. But at the provincial level, she said, we have an independentist party. But I said, be serious. Vote for the independence at the provincial level. I told her in 1995, in Quebec, I voted yes. I voted yes for the separation. Why? Because I was tired of that big fat government telling us Quebecers what to do. and without respecting our constitution. Now Albertans are feeling the same, and I'm okay with that. But I said yes because I wanted the federal government to stop interfering in provincial jurisdiction. They did not, and that's why I did jump into politics in 2006 to fix that, and I did a big deregulation as a minister. So that's, and when I was in 2006 with Harper asked me, Maxime, I want to have support in Quebec. Do you have ideas for my platform? I told him two things. First, you must lower taxes to Quebecers. And if you do that, you'll do for every Canadian. Second, constitutional peace. Don't interfere in provincial jurisdiction. But best, withdraw from interfering in provincial jurisdictions. He didn't do that part. But he delivered a speech in Quebec in October 2005, and that was very popular. So that being said, what I'm telling you, maybe if you have Trudeau or the Conservative, and you still have the Equalization, because Poilievre will pander to Central Canada, Quebec and Toronto, and they know that out west. It will be the same as Carney. So I told them, vote for the independence at the provincial level, send a strong signal in Ottawa, and I will be the only and the first leader of a Federalist party saying, hey, Albertan, you must vote yes, because now these traditional politicians, establishment politicians, they don't take you seriously. Vote yes, you'll be at the table, we'll have a new deal that will be in line with the deal that we had in 1867.
Yeah.
So they're the same for me. Okay. So if you want the destruction, do you want the destruction faster or slower? Faster with the Liberals or slower with Poilievre. Both of them are driving into a wall at different speed. We are there watching that and saying, guys, if Canadians, you want that, okay. But we'll be there to save that country because we have the best ideas for everybody to be happy, Quebecers and also Albertan, and having policies that will create prosperity with a smaller government.
So when you look at, when you talk about, Canada heading in a certain direction, and I agree with you in the sense that, even if the Conservatives do get elected, unless there is some radical change,
they won't because they will look at the polls. They will look at the polls like Harper did. The goal of the Conservative and the Liberals is to be in power. And after that, they're going to do everything to stay in power. It's not about policies. They're telling you the policies that you want to hear. But not only that, with the survey and the focus group, they're using the words that you will like to hear. And Poilievre is great about that with all the slogan and all the time. But that's the way they're doing politics. For us, you need to read our platform. And after that, if you like it and you said it's so important for me to get rid of the Liberal, vote for a Conservative. You're going to go down the drain at a different speed. In 4 years, I'll be there and I'll tell you, what did he do? Climate change? No, we're still in Paris. Equalization? No. Deregulation in pipelines. They are speaking about pipelines right now. But when you ask Poilievre, are you ready to use the Constitution, the Section 9210? If you use that, the federal government will have full jurisdictions over pipeline, and Quebec or any other provinces won't be able to stop it. Nobody will use it. I said that in 2019 when we are speaking about pipeline, that we must use the Constitution, and the media in Quebec, a Francophone, said, oh, Maxime, are you saying that you'll impose a pipeline on Quebec? I said, yes. We are in 2025. At that time, we're in 2019. We can build pipelines that will be secure for the environment. And by the way, there's a lot of pipelines in Quebec going from the port of Montreal to the airport, Trudeau Airport, and old pipelines. And so let's build new pipelines, more secure. But in Quebec, they're listening to the radical left. But Poilievre doesn't have the courage to say to Quebec, we'll use the Constitution and we'll build that pipelines. So maybe under the Conservative, we may not have pipelines.
You mentioned in there about, at one point when we were talking here, you mentioned, you sort of looked the other side of the pond of the UK, France, Germany. And see, when I look at that, and of course, none of what's happening over there ever makes its way into we talked about the mainstream media here. You never see any of that. But what's happening over there is unbelievable. I mean, it's outrageous. But when I look at that, I look at it as where we're heading.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Do you think that they're just further along than we are?
That's why it's a question of time.
Okay.
10 years. It's a question of time.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm saying I'm a Francophone Quebecers. Mm-hmm. In Quebec, we fight for our sovereignty as a province and also to keep our culture. We have discussion at every provincial election about the level of immigration. Mm-hmm. The PQ will said 20,000. Another party will. Nobody said that you're racist. I started that discussion at 2019 at the federal level in English Canada. Oh, but I wanted to have a maximum of 150,000 at that time. I was racist, xenophobic, all that. And I was right at that time. We didn't do that, 150,000. No, we went to mass immigration. Now it's a moratorium. Right. So the mass immigration plus multiculturalism, it is destroying our country. And now you have the PQ in Quebec. The young, charismatic PQ leader is ahead in the poll and is saying to Quebecers, if you vote for me in 2026, that will be the date of the provincial election, you will have a referendum on the independence a year later. He's not afraid. He's speaking. And why is he doing that? Why the independence is more popular in Quebec now? Because of Trudeau, because of mass immigration. Mm-hmm. People are like, no. And they are not integrating into our society. Mm-hmm. And now it's coming in all across the country. So I will give to my country maybe 10 to 20 years if we still have that mass immigration. In France, I was there 2 years ago. There's no go zone. I was with a taxi driver and I said, I want to go there. He said, oh, no, I'm not driving you there. So what? It's too dangerous.
Is that right?
We have here in Canada ghettos. Surrey, BC, you're in India. Mm-hmm. Brampton, Ontario, you're in India. Mm-hmm. I think they will need a Bill 101 there to protect the English language. Mm-hmm. You go in Surrey and you try to walk on the street and you look, there's no English there.
Really?
English Canadian will say, oh, the Bill 101, what's that? The Bill 101 was a good bill. You have French and below you have English. Mm-hmm. That's the legislation. You need to have both. But French must be bigger and English. You go in Surrey, you don't have any English when you walk on the street. And we're telling them, keep your culture, but every culture is not equal. When we are importing the third world culture, we are becoming a third world country, mm-hmm. and that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm just sitting there with the same platform, and in 2029, I will have the same platform, and I'll tell you, we are heading in the wrong direction. I told you that for years. I hope people are ready to support the PPC. If not, it's okay. I'll wait, because I won't change. I know that I have the best ideas. Sorry, I'm a little bit pretentious, but I know I'm doing that. I'm fighting for the ideas. When you believe in people and you don't believe in government, when you believe in freedom, and when you believe in Western civilization values, you're doing the right thing for your country. And I believe, and I don't care if the media is giving me 2% or 5%. And if we have 1% at this election, I'll be there in 5 years, but we won't. We will be able to double that, because we need to speak with people to explain our position. This country is going down the drain. And if we don't do anything, but Poliev and Carney, for me, it's the same. It's a different speed.
Yeah.
I
guess that's a good way to
And I'm telling Canadians, if you vote for your values, you have more chances to have what you want. Voting for the less of, evil.
I think I agree with you. I just think that probably the biggest problem there is that for many Canadians, unless you're somebody who is, you're on Twitter or somewhere on social media and you're getting your news from other sources other than the mainstream media, so many Canadians would be completely unaware of, let alone what's happening, say in Europe, but even what's happening in their own country, like in Surrey, BC, and Brampton, they would just be completely unaware of that. You're right about that. And that's why in my team, I'm not on TikTok. I was surprised, I'm 62 years old. I, travel a little bit. I've met a lot of people. And I was speaking with a guy of my age, and he was taking his news on TikTok. I
said, what's that? And so, how come you're not on TikTok? And, you know, young, and in our, if you look at the polls, we don't do any polls, but the public one, we have the most support in young male, 18 to 35 years old. We are at 15% of support there. And they told me they are all on TikTok. So yes, now I'm starting that. If you go on my TikTok account, we did the first 2 videos, but that's the future. So social media, TikTok, we are there. X, but you know, young people are not on X.
No, that's right. I think it's more of X is more of a Gen X platform. I find. Yeah.
They're more on Instagram, TikTok,
right.
And so we'll be there. And Trudeau is not on TikTok. Poilievre is not on TikTok. So, but being on TikTok, it's a little bit challenging for a politician. I'm not there to dance, I'm there to speak about my ideas, and to show the ideas, but also the men behind the politicians. And we want that to be serious, but also. You know, we want people to look at our little videos that we will put on TikTok. But it's new, it's a nice challenge, and I hope that we'll be able to build, you know, if we can have 1 million followers on TikTok, that will be great. Yeah. But we have a lot of followers on Rumble, on YouTube, on X, but we need to be out there because young voters are there and we are not there, and a lot of them, because they're not taking their news, you know, some of them are just taking their news on TikTok.
Right.
They don't know that we exist. So we need to be there, and we will, and that would be fun.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Like I mentioned, I started this podcast only 6 months ago now, not quite even 6 months yet.
Yeah.
And before doing that, I had no social media. Personally, I had no social media presence, no TikTok, YouTube, nothing, you know. And I was hoping to just avoid all that. I was hoping to just skirt through life and, you know, not do that, but we also started using TikTok. There is a very significant reach on TikTok, and we find that you know, as you know, when you're on X, for instance, and there's a conversation at hand, X is a very argumentative platform, right? Everyone likes to argue. 90% of the people are anonymous, right? I do find though on TikTok, for what it's worth, that it tends to be a little less toxic, if nothing else, if not for lack of a better term. And not that everyone's going to agree with you, but tends to be a less nasty place, but a good place to get your message out.
Because you're right. Usually they're doing videos, right, and we see your face.
That's right.
So it's not as anonymous as X.
Right.
So no, we are. I decided to jump into it. It's new, but it will be fun. And that's a nice opportunity because, you know, we need to be on every platform.
Sure.
And then we were not.
Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Like you. So this podcast will be on.
We'll be on YouTube. It's on YouTube, so we always put our episodes out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. You know, so there's audio versions of it, but then the YouTube is kind of the main platform where we'll put it out. So you'll see it there. I appreciate you coming in here today. I'm sure you're very busy. I appreciate you carving out an hour to have this conversation.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a nice opportunity.
I saw your interview with that you mentioned with Jordan Peterson years ago. I've watched that. You know, I agree with you, of course. Having done this podcast thing myself, I did it for the reason, and it just so happened that when I started the podcast, we were like a week before our municipal election here. So 2 of the first 3 interviews I did were with folks running for the municipal election, running for mayor.
Yeah.
And then like 5 or 6 weeks later, we were in a provincial election, you know, and now here we are a few months later again, it's federal election. So I didn't start the podcast to be a political podcast. I actually just wanted to be more of a conversational, you know, business owners, local people, local conversation. But because we've been living in this current state of elections, you know, we probably have another month.
But good for you, because also it's great because more people can, you know, if they want to know more, that's a nice opportunity for them to know more about their municipal politics, provincial, and now federal.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, viewers, you know, go on our website, read our platform. If you like it, I hope you'll support us. If not, like I said during that podcast, I won't change. That will be the same platform in 2025. So I won't pander to you. I hope you'll like what I'm saying and vote for us. If not, it's too bad for me.
Right. Well, very best of luck.
Thanks
very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate that.
Nice
to meet you.